In the bustling heart of New York City in the spring of 1987, the Thompson family seemed like any other in their tight-knit Queens neighborhood. Robert and Susan Thompson were a devoted couple, balancing demanding jobs with raising their 3 young children: Emily, aged 12, Michael, 9, and little Sarah, just 5 years old. The family was known for their warmth and community spirit, often seen attending local events, school functions, and Sunday church services. Their home was a modest but cozy 2-story house on a quiet street, filled with laughter and the daily rhythms of family life. One ordinary evening in mid-April, the Thompsons vanished without a trace. On the surface, there was no warning, no sign of struggle or reason for them to disappear. Neighbors noticed the quiet absence, but assumed the family had perhaps gone on a trip or moved suddenly. Yet, as days passed with no word or sign, concern grew. Their school informed social services when the children did not show up for classes, and colleagues at their workplaces found no explanation for their abrupt absence. The police quickly launched an investigation into the mysterious disappearance. Detectives scoured the family home, searching for clues or signs of foul play. The house was undisturbed. Their personal belongings were intact, the dinner dishes left uneaten on the table, and no notes or messages explaining their departure. Even the family dog was found wandering the neighborhood, thin and anxious, a silent witness to the unknown fate of its owners. Neighbors recounted the last moments they saw the Thompsons. One recalled Robert leaving for work early that day, as usual, while Susan prepared breakfast for the children. Another remembered seeing Emily and Michael playing in the front yard that afternoon, laughing under the warm sun. But after that day, no one saw or heard from any of them again. The case baffled investigators. No ransom demands were made, no suspicious activity reported, and the city's cameras and phone records from that era provided no leads. It was as if the family had simply vanished into thin air. Newspapers covered the story extensively, dubbing it the vanishing of the Thompson family, and the public was captivated by the chilling mystery. Despite exhaustive efforts, the trail ran cold. Over the next several months, investigators followed every possible lead, from sightings of a similar-looking family in neighboring states, to rumors of a secret witness who had disappeared soon after, to theories of voluntary disappearance due to financial troubles, yet none held up to scrutiny. The Thompsons' disappearance left a lasting scar on their community and the city at large. The unanswered questions haunted their friends and relatives. How could a family of 5 simply vanish without a trace in one of the world's most surveilled cities? Were they victims of a crime so cleverly executed it defied logic? Or had they chosen to escape their lives, erasing themselves from existence? As the investigation went cold, the story of the Thompson family became a ghost story told in hushed tones. It was a reminder of the fragility of everyday life and the mysteries hidden beneath the surface of urban normality. The city moved on, but for those who knew the Thompsons, hope and heartbreak lingered in equal measure. For 20 years, the Thompson family remained an enigma, a haunting void in the fabric of their Queens neighborhood and beyond. The initial shock of their disappearance gradually settled into a persistent ache, a wound that refused to heal as the decades passed without a single new lead. The city that once buzzed with hope for answers now whispered the family's name with a mix of sorrow and resigned acceptance. Detective James Harper, one of the original investigators on the case, had never stopped thinking about the Thompsons. He often revisited the cold files, flipping through photographs and notes, wondering if a detail had slipped through the cracks. Despite retiring years ago, the mystery tugged at him like a ghost, refusing to rest. Occasionally, he shared his lingering doubts with new officers, urging them to keep the case alive, but the trail had long since gone cold. Over the years, theories multiplied, each more imaginative than the last. Some speculated that the family had fallen victim to an elaborate kidnapping scheme, while others whispered about a possible connection to organized crime or a tragic accident concealed from the public. A few even suggested that the Thompsons had deliberately vanished to escape personal troubles or debts, choosing to forge new identities far from New York's relentless gaze. The media played its role in shaping the public's fascination. Documentaries aired, books were published, and podcasts revisited the chilling tale, each retelling weaving fragments of fact with speculation. Social media in later years gave the story new life as true crime enthusiasts pored over every known detail, hunting for clues that might have been overlooked. Relatives of the Thompsons, especially Susan's sister Margaret, held on to hope through the years. She organized annual memorials and maintained a website dedicated to the family, sharing photos and memories in the hope that someone, somewhere might recognize them or come forward with information. Margaret's tireless efforts kept the family's memory alive, even as her own heart bore the pain of unanswered questions. The neighborhood, too, bore the marks of the family's absence. The Thompsons' house remained empty for years, a silent monument to the unknown. Some residents believed it was cursed or haunted by the unresolved tragedy. Children dared each other to approach the creaking porch, their imaginations fueled by stories passed down like folklore. Despite all efforts, law enforcement's resources to pursue the case waned as time passed and priorities shifted. Cold case units reopened it occasionally, but each review ended with frustration. The lack of physical evidence, witnesses, or technological tools limited what could be uncovered from the shadows of the past. Yet, the story of the Thompsons refused to fade completely from public consciousness. On anniversaries of their disappearance, local news outlets revisited the case, reminding the city that some mysteries remained painfully unresolved. The family had become symbolic of the many missing persons cases that slipped through the cracks, victims of time as much as circumstance. As the new millennium dawned, advances in forensic science and data management brought a flicker of renewed hope to cold cases worldwide. Yet for the Thompsons, the silence persisted until that unexpected day 2 decades later, when the past literally surfaced from beneath the earth, ready to rewrite everything known about their fate. For 20 years, the Thompson family's disappearance lingered in the city's collective memory, a haunting question mark amid New York's ever-changing landscape. But it wasn't until the spring of 2007, 2 decades after that fateful day in 1987, that an unexpected event shattered the quiet of the cold case. Deep beneath the soil of a redevelopment site in Queens, construction workers made a chilling discovery that would reignite the search for answers. The site, once a derelict industrial lot slated for a new residential complex, had been under excavation for several weeks. Heavy machinery rumbled as crews dug deeper into the earth, uncovering layers of forgotten history buried beneath the city streets. Amid the rubble and discarded debris, a worker's shovel struck something hard and unyielding. Curiosity turned to shock as the team uncovered fragments of what appeared to be human remains, along with personal belongings that hinted at a tragic story long buried. Word of the discovery spread quickly through the neighborhood, stirring up a mix of fear and hope. Local authorities were called in immediately to secure the site and begin a formal investigation. For those who had followed the Thompson case, the timing was uncanny. Could these remains finally be connected to the vanished family that had haunted Queens for so long? As forensic teams carefully excavated the area, they uncovered more evidence. Bones arranged in a way that suggested a hurried burial, a child's shoe, fragments of clothing, and a weathered locket engraved with the initials ST. The discovery sent ripples through the city's media, sparking renewed interest and speculation. The decades-old mystery was suddenly thrust back into the spotlight. Experts from the medical examiner's office began a painstaking process to identify the remains, using all available technology to piece together the puzzle. DNA testing, which had advanced significantly since the 1980s, was at the forefront of these efforts. Samples were sent to specialized labs, cross-referenced with DNA profiles from surviving family members and historical records. Meanwhile, the community responded with a mixture of emotions. Some residents felt a profound sadness, as if a painful chapter was finally reopening. Others clung to the hope that the discovery might bring long-awaited closure to a story that had defined much of their lives. The Thompsons' relatives, particularly Margaret, traveled to the site. Their grief mingled with a fragile hope that the truth would emerge from the dirt. The police department reopened the case with renewed vigor, assembling a task force of cold case detectives and forensic specialists. New leads emerged from previously overlooked records and witness statements, and the investigation began to expand beyond the physical evidence. Questions arose about who might have been responsible, why the family had been buried in secret, and whether justice could still be served after so many years. Despite the grim nature of the discovery, it marked a turning point. The unearthing of the Thompson family's remains beneath the city's surface brought the past crashing into the present, forcing authorities and the community alike to confront the reality behind the mystery. It was no longer just a story frozen in time, but a living investigation demanding answers. As the dig continued and more information came to light, the city braced itself for revelations that might change everything it thought it knew about the Thompsons' fate. The long silence was over, and the search for truth was entering a new, uncertain phase. The discovery beneath the Queen's soil had opened a door that had been sealed for 2 decades, but the process of piecing together the Thompson family's past was far from straightforward. Forensic experts faced the daunting task of reconstructing a story that time had tried to erase, relying on advances in technology and painstaking detective work to breathe life back into the cold case. At the heart of this effort was the medical examiner's office, where a team of specialists began the meticulous examination of the skeletal remains and personal effects unearthed from the construction site. The bones, fragile and weathered, spoke volumes through their silent testimony. Signs of trauma on some of the remains suggested a violent end, but the full story remained locked beneath layers of decay and mystery. DNA analysis became the cornerstone of identification. Thanks to breakthroughs in genetic testing, forensic scientists were able to extract viable samples from the remains despite the passage of time. These samples were compared against DNA from surviving relatives, including Susan Thompson's sister Margaret, who had long held on to hope and had provided her genetic material willingly. The match was a bittersweet confirmation. The remains were indeed those of the Thompson family. The forensic team also used advanced imaging and reconstruction techniques to piece together the physical appearance of each family member. By analyzing bone structure and other clues, forensic artists created detailed portraits to help bring the faces of the missing back to life in the public's mind. These images rekindled emotional responses from the community and the family's extended network. Beyond identification, the examination revealed unsettling details about the circumstances surrounding their deaths. Evidence pointed to a hurried and clandestine burial, suggesting the family had been victims of foul play. Marks on the bones indicated possible defensive wounds, and the absence of certain belongings raised questions about what might have been taken or hidden. Investigators revisited witness statements and timelines in light of the new forensic evidence. They uncovered discrepancies in earlier reports and began to develop new theories about what might have transpired on that ill-fated day in 1987. The forensic breakthroughs provided not only confirmation of identity, but also a foundation for reconstructing the chain of events leading to the family's tragic end. The emotional weight of the findings was profound. For Margaret and other relatives, the confirmation brought a painful mixture of grief and relief. They finally had answers about their loved ones, even if those answers were heartbreaking. The community that had watched the story unfold over years found some solace in the clarity the forensic work provided. The police, bolstered by these breakthroughs, renewed their commitment to solving the case, New resources were allocated, cold case specialists brought in, and the investigation expanded beyond the physical evidence to include interviews with people connected to the family and their last known whereabouts. The forensic evidence acted as a catalyst, turning a dormant mystery into an active pursuit of justice. This phase of the investigation marked a turning point. The intersection of modern science and relentless detective work began to unravel a narrative that had been buried both physically and metaphorically. The truth was emerging piece by piece, and while some questions remained, the forensic breakthroughs offered the clearest glimpse yet into what had happened to the Thompson family. As the forensic evidence began to piece together the physical reality of the Thompsons' tragic fate, investigators delved deeper into the tangled web of circumstances surrounding their disappearance. The quiet neighborhood and the city's archives suddenly brimmed with shadows, hidden truths that had been carefully concealed for 20 years, now threatening to surface with unrelenting force. Detective Harper and his team reopened old leads and conducted fresh interviews, speaking with former neighbors, colleagues, and anyone who had known the family in the late 1980s. New testimonies painted a complex picture: subtle tensions, unexplained visitors, and whispers of conflicts that had never been fully disclosed. Some recalled fleeting glimpses of strange figures lurking near the Thompsons' home in the weeks before their disappearance. Financial records revealed irregularities that hinted at mounting pressures. Robert Thompson's workplace files showed unexplained absences and a recent request for a significant loan, fueling speculation about hidden debts or entanglements with individuals who might have posed threats. Meanwhile, Susan's close friends spoke of her growing anxiety and fears, though she had kept these feelings tightly guarded from outsiders. One particularly chilling lead emerged from a former associate of Robert's, who had since passed away, but left behind a journal detailing his dealings with dangerous figures in the city's underworld. The journal suggested that Robert had become involved in illicit activities, perhaps unwittingly, and that this involvement might have made the family a target. Law enforcement also revisited the possibility of foul play tied to a nearby construction project underway in the late 1980s. Records indicated disputes over property rights and rumors of threats made against local residents. It was conceivable that the Thompsons had uncovered or become entangled in something far beyond their control. Despite the growing pile of circumstantial evidence, direct proof remained elusive. No definitive suspect emerged, and the motives behind the crime, if it was indeed a crime, remained shrouded in ambiguity. Yet the revelations challenged the once comforting notion that the Thompsons had simply vanished by choice or accident. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that the truth was more complicated than anyone had imagined. The family's fate was tied to secrets buried beneath the city's surface, secrets of fear, desperation, and betrayal. The Thompsons had become unwilling players in a story that intertwined the personal and the perilous, the familiar and the sinister. This phase of the investigation reinvigorated public interest and spurred calls for justice. The community rallied behind renewed efforts to bring closure and accountability. Media outlets followed the unfolding revelations closely, while advocates for missing persons emphasized the importance of remembering the Thompsons not just as victims, but as people whose lives had been shattered by forces beyond their control. Though some questions remained unanswered, the uncovering of hidden truths provided a sobering understanding of the Thompsons' last days. The family's story was no longer a simple mystery, but a complex tragedy woven into the city's dark history. The unearthing of the Thompson family's remains after 20 years sent shockwaves through their community and beyond, stirring a complex blend of grief, relief, and a desperate yearning for closure. For the friends and relatives who had long lived with uncertainty, the discovery was both a devastating confirmation and a chance to finally honor the memory of those lost. Margaret Thompson, Susan's sister, had been the family's fiercest advocate through the decades, tirelessly campaigning for answers and refusing to let the case fade into obscurity. Standing at the edge of the excavation site when the remains were identified, she felt a profound mixture of sorrow and gratitude. The years of waiting had taken their toll, but at last she had something concrete to hold on to, a truth that, while painful, was no longer shrouded in silence. The local community, once haunted by the unresolved mystery, began the slow process of healing. Memorials were held, and efforts to restore the family's empty home began as a symbolic gesture of remembrance. The neighbors shared stories, photographs, and memories, weaving together a narrative that reclaimed the Thompsons' place in the neighborhood's history. Law enforcement continued their pursuit of justice, propelled by the new forensic evidence and renewed public interest. Though suspects had yet to be charged, the case was no longer relegated to cold files. The investigation was active, and the community support created pressure for accountability. For many, the hope was that this renewed focus would prevent similar tragedies in the future. Psychologists and counselors were brought in to support those affected, recognizing the deep emotional wounds left by decades of uncertainty and grief. For Margaret and other relatives, therapy provided a space to process their trauma and begin to rebuild their lives around the memory of the Thompsons. The media coverage, while intense, helped raise awareness about the challenges faced by families of missing persons and the importance of persistence in seeking truth. The Thompsons' story became a catalyst for discussions about resources for cold cases, forensic science funding, and the rights of victims' families. Yet even with these efforts, some questions remained unanswered. The precise circumstances of the family's death, the identity of those responsible, and the full extent of the secrets buried with them continued to elude investigators. This lingering uncertainty underscored the complexity of healing and the reality that closure is often a process rather than a moment. Despite the pain, the discovery offered a form of resolution, a chance to say goodbye, to grieve openly, and to honor the Thompsons not as missing shadows, but as cherished people who once lived, loved, and were deeply missed. Their story, etched into the fabric of New York's history, served as a solemn reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of hope. As the community moved forward, the legacy of the Thompsons became one of remembrance and resilience, inspiring efforts to bring light to other forgotten stories and ensuring that no one's disappearance would be met with silence again. If you found this story as captivating as we did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Join our community for more unbelievable true stories and mysteries that keep you on the edge of your seat. Remember, every story deserves to be told, and your voice helps keep these memories alive. Stay curious, stay engaged, and we'll see you in the next video.